All right, what's going on YouTube? I'm back with another video. In this one, we're analyzing GMA graded cards and the value of those cards. And I've labeled this fact versus fiction so we can dive into sort of some myths that are out there, what people are hearing and saying, and put some data behind it to see what the truth is, where the truth lies. So start off with a few admin notes. If you're a subscriber to this channel, you probably noticed that the name is different. I've changed it to Top Chop Sports Cards to match up with my eBay store and eBay seller name, Top Chop SC. For those of you who have asked if I sell online, that's my store. You can go check that out, and I got an email address down bottom if you want to shoot me any notes. If you got ideas or things you want to know about, ideas for new videos, please shoot me an email, or if you just want to tell me how much you differ with my opinion, by all means, shoot me an email. I'm always open to more data and better products to put out on the market. So with that admin note aside, if you haven't subscribed already, please remember to hit that subscribe button and like the video if you enjoy it. All right, so in this video, we're going to look into the different grading companies, and we're really trying to compare how they stack up to GMA. And in the end, I'm going to give you my unbiased opinion of who you should grade through, what cards you should grade through what company, and give you some data-driven details here. So to start, we're going to initially come out with a comparison for the various grading companies. So here on the slide, you see SGC, Beckett, and GMA. And what I did here is I broke down some of the data for cost and turnaround time. So SGC, they're averaging anything under $249. You're looking at a $10 fee for a 20-day turnaround time. That's sort of like the base level that you're going to find with them. And you can see here they have a tiered pricing system now, much like PSA does, where the declared value of the card drives the cost to grade it. Now, this declared value, that's what you claim sending it in. So really what that pertains to is when they ship them back to you, that's what they're going to insure the box for. And PSA does a similar method, as you can see here on the right. Based on the declared value of the item, it'll raise the dollar value for grading. And you can see as you go down through the stack there on the right, it can get pretty expensive. So compare that to SGC, not quite as pricey, but still in a tiered fashion. So keep that in mind when you're talking about declared values on cards. GMA, they raised their prices. If you've graded through them before, it used to be $350 a card for anything under 100 cards for submission, and $4 is their current rate for same price. Or sorry, for the same quantity of cards. Anything over 100 costs $3.50, which was their old price for under 100. $5 per card for jersey cards, and $10 to authenticate autographs, which is pretty sketchy to me, and we'll talk about that later on. Authenticating autographs, that's a tough market to be in, and you really got to know what you're looking for in that. But they are offering their 7-day turnaround time, maybe a little bit longer with current shipping being delayed from USPS and UPS, as I've seen. And then over there on Beckett's side, they do have pretty quick turnaround times for submissions, and the quicker you want it, the more you pay for it. But they don't have a tiered system, so no matter the dollar value of the card, it costs the same amount to grade it. They do, however, have a separate section for declared value and what it will cost you to insure your package when it's coming back to you. So PSA, you can see in the upper left the turnaround times for their current business in raw, crossover, and review. It's pretty lengthy. And granted, they were shut down for a while, so was BGS, so that's going to play into it with all the COVID stuff we have going on. But you're talking for a bulk card submission, if you were looking for their $9 per card grading, anything under $99 declared value, you're looking at over 100 business days. And some people have been saying 4, 5, even 6 months to get their order back. So that is a long time to be waiting on your cards. Be aware of that. If you're sending off to PSA for the first time, you'll probably be waiting a while for your package to come back. All right, so in this data that I'm presenting to you, there are a few different areas you can look. There are some other sites than what I used here, but primarily, people usually start off with eBay. You can look on the sold items listing, and you can find a pretty good spread of what cards sold for. I also use website cardsnoop.com. They're pretty good. They can pull down if items were best offer sold on eBay. You can usually find what they actually sold for on the site. So I leveraged both of these as I was doing my data mining for this video. If you've never checked out the Card Snoop site, it's a pretty good site to use. All right. This is a slide to basically depict what I see as value based on grade and grading company. And this plays a significant role because you factor in the cost to grade, the likelihood of getting said grade, and then what your resale value is. So Black Label for BGS, I don't think anyone's going to fight me on that. That is sort of the top level. That's what's going to maximize your money, but they're few and far between for Black Label. That's everything 10 on a card. So you go down below that, you've got a standard 10 from Beckett, which has one of the 4 grading categories that were off, that were not a 10, but still overall the card is pristine. Then you have the gold label through SGC, which is much like the black label through Beckett. Then you have the PSA 10, the SGC 10 non-gold label, the BGS 9.5, the GMA 10, and then PSA 9. So based on the research that I've done and all the buying and selling that I've done online, this is sort of where the grades fall out as far as value for the card. And we'll get deeper into this here in the coming slides, but you can tell me if you disagree with this. I think this is pretty accurate based on the data that I'm mining here. Just be aware that in the data that I'm going to show you, I'm not showing you any data for Black Label, BGS 10, or Gold Label SGCs. Just because on any given card, it's very rare to find multiple sales data or sales points for any of those categories. So I'm strictly sticking with the PSA 10 and below for my spreadsheet that I'll show you. So time sales comparison, what I wanted to show you here was timing matters significantly when you're talking about sale price of a card. And here we're talking about 2017 Donruss Optic Hollow of Patrick Mahomes. I have 4 sales shown here, the top one being a PSA 10, second a BGS 9.5. The third was actually one that I sold, was a GMA 10, and then a PSA 9. And you can see the dollar value difference in those sales based on the time frame being within basically a 10-day window of all these sales. And on the next slide, what you see is just within the previous 2 months what those items were selling for. So a huge swing upward for the hollow card, and a lot of other cards on the market have seen a similar swing. But timing is everything, and just the fact that you could have purchased, the PSA 10s for, under $1,000, and then 2 months later you're swinging them for, $2,000. That's a pretty good return on investment. But it's hard to time these, just like the stock market. It's rather difficult to forecast, what cards are going to do, what prices are going to do. Because in this time frame, Patrick Mahomes hasn't done anything. The NFL's not playing. You buy this card in March versus May, he's already won the Super Bowl in both months, so nothing is different there. What you see is an uptick in the number of people getting into the hobby, and as prices go up, people will spend more money and sort of hop on the bandwagon, and that's what you've seen with this card. So timing is significant, and short time frame plays into grading a card, because if you got a card sent off that are taking forever to get graded, you can have a similar swing in the downward direction. It's not uncommon to see cards lose value just as quick as they gain it. All right, how rare a card is matters. So here's an example of the Patrick Mahomes 2017 Panini Chainmail Armor. So this series of Panini had a few different cards of this Patrick Mahomes rookie. So there was the base rookie, there was the Chainmail Armor, which is sort of the highest level. Then you have a Shining Armor. And then you have, trying to think of the Knights Templar, I think it was called, was the other one. So different levels, different amount of production put out on the market. This card, as you can see the sales data on the left side, there was a PSA 9 sold for $163, and then a raw card sold, a few days later for $316. The one I have circled on the right is one that I actually have listed right now on my site. And at the time that I was making this video, putting the data together, there were only 4 of them available online. And mine being graded was, at the time, the best deal that was available. So this is a situation where people may try to, chip away at my asking price and say, well, the previous sales data shows that it sold for this. But I have the advantage in this situation because there aren't a lot of them for sale. And I got it priced at a good price point right now. So sometimes prior sales data doesn't matter, as you can sort of dictate the price on rare cards. And this is a perfect example of that situation. So I'll wait it out. I'll see how long it takes to sell this. But my intent is not to dip too far below the sale price. All right. One of the things that people talk about all too often is, I see it online on card rooms, the chat rooms, and Facebook, and even on comments on my own videos and other videos on YouTube. GMA hands out all 10s. Not true. You can see here, you can watch a ton of other videos on YouTube. They do not hand out all 10s. I've done a number of other videos comparing GMA to other grading companies, and in those I've shown plenty of examples of cards that do not come back Gem Mint 10. In fact, they were very close to some of the other grading companies on their grading standards. So this is not true. And I tell you, there is a video, actually a few videos on YouTube where people will compare, they'll pull up eBay and they'll compare the number of GMA 10s versus GMA 9s, 8s, 7s, 6. And then they'll do the same with PSA. And they'll say, look, there are so many more PSA 9s and belows for sale than there are GMA 9s and belows. Therefore, GMA is handing out way more 10s. That's their logic behind it. And if you were just going with that data, you would say, oh, that sort of makes sense. You can pull the raw data on eBay and you can see. But the fact of the matter is that PSA low-numbered grades hold far more value than GMA does. And here's a perfect example. So on the left, you have a 1990 Flair Michael Jordan graded a 7, near mint 7 from GMA that sold for $4. PSA 7 of the same card sold for $20. Okay, now you do the math on that. Right now it costs me $4 to grade the card. If I sell it for $4, I'm still going to have to ship it. I automatically lose money right off the bat. A PSA 7, however, if I send it off with a bulk shipment, it costs me $10 to grade it. I get it back, sell it for $20, got to pay for the shipping. All in all, I'm going to make slight profit off that PSA 7. I'm more likely to list a PSA 7 than I am a GMA 7. So you can see to the far right, those are raw dollar values for card sales. I have had a lot, especially when I first started grading, getting back into the hobby, sending cards off to GMA. I got a lot of them back that were graded, 8s and below, and I've learned lessons, over time. But this card, I would not sell as a GMA 7. I would crack it out of the slab, probably group it with a bunch of other cards, and sell them listed as very good, near mint condition, and see what I can pull for selling a lot. And a lot of other people, you will find this same situation where they're not going to spend the time or the money to list these low-level cards. A lot of times they're grading them, getting them back at the lower numbers, and they're putting them in their personal collection, not looking to flip for profit. So I think this more so than anything drives why you see lower number or lower graded cards from GMA not filling up the market like you do for PSA and BGS. The value just isn't there. People aren't going to spend the extra money on lower graded cards from GMA. So it's something to keep in mind, something to consider when you're making the blanket statement regarding how they grade. They aren't all 10s that they're handing out. All right, here's the data. First, I'm going to start with Zion Prism Rookie, number 248. And what I've done here, you can see across the top, different grades and companies that I pulled data for. Some of these had more data than others. You can see the SGC 9.5 and the GMA 10. I didn't have a ton of data for, but I'm still going to use them in this chart down below. A couple things I want to point out. First off, right down here, this gap that you see. What this is, this bottom blue line is the SGC 10 non-gold label, and this top line is the PSA 10. And the data that is presented in yellow was actually pulled from the month of April. Everything above that was the month of May. So as you go back across here on my bar chart, if you start from the right, you're gonna go across. It starts in April and you work your way across over here into late May. And as you can see, SGC has slowly climbed over the month of April to the point where they are pretty well matching and at some points exceeding PSA 10s. They stayed open during COVID, if you didn't know, and they were doing a lot of business, which is great for them. And they have definitely crept into the market and taken up some of the market share and certainly come in line with PSA. And I think that's great. I think it's great for the collecting market. I think it's great for us as collectors and having another valid option out there. So the other points I want to show you deal with raw versus GMA. I get a lot of statements and I read a lot of stuff online saying you're better off cracking GMA slabs and just selling them raw because you get more money. That is not true. It is emphatically not true. In every card that I sell with GMA, if they're graded a 10, and in most cases a GMA 9, I can sell that thing for more than I can raw value. To say that is a blanket statement and it's not based off factual evidence at all. You can see in the averages, there are times where you'll see sales data where a GMA 10 will creep up towards a PSA 10 level, but for the most part, you're going to see it well below a PSA 10. However, many times I see GMA 10s selling for higher than PSA 9, and that's what you see here with Zion. All of these four up top were actually sales that I made of Zion-based GMA 10, and I was selling pretty good clip here. Around the 250, sorry, it wasn't this top one at 199. I sold these three, 250, 255, and 255. Those were my sales right there. And did I have to sit on them a little longer than I would have a PSA 10? Yes, you definitely will sit on these longer. But I always question, what's the likelihood of me pulling a PSA 10 versus a 9? And we'll get into that in the upcoming slides. But as you can see here, work your way down, SGC 10, PSA 10, BGS 9.5, GMA 10, then you have SGC 9.5, BGS 9, PSA 9, and you see those falling below the GMA 10 category. So on the whole, I can say that GMA 10 for this card is definitely sold above the 9s for the other competitors and pretty close to the 9.5 level for BGS. Next, if you haven't checked out my SGC versus GMA video, I actually cracked open some slabs, sent them in, and compared grading. And there were numerous situations where these grades sort of flip-flopped, one grading higher than the other, but in the end, they came out pretty close within a 0.09% variation. Which is very good, very close. So it's interesting to see the sales data like this and see SGC taking off when I've found PSA to be very close in the way that they grade compared to SGC. All right, next one is Ja Morant. So I did the same thing, same categories going across. For jaw, you'll see up here, these top 4 were my sales that I made. Those are the prices I sold them for. And you can see again, well above raw. You see on the category over here, again, right in line. This one's more in line with the PSA 9. But we had this one-off of $34 that was sold pretty early on. And then some higher ones of $225. So it varies. I think this is a more reasonable figure for what I was able to pull for these 4. And you can see that it's a little bit higher than PSA 9 on average. But also it cost me $3.50 to grade these versus a minimum of $10 to grade these. I get mine a lot faster than you will on the return shipping for PSA. No doubt about it, PSA 10 is a higher value than GMA 10. I'm not going to fight that. Anyone who tries to tell you that GMA will sell for PSA 10s, you'll find oddities, one-offs. Every now and then you'll find a GMA 10 that'll sell, or even I've seen a few that have exceeded a PSA 10, but that's usually in rare cases where the card itself is rare. But that's where you're in line pretty much on the grading scale, grading standards. And again, you see SGC creeping up there. So the data shows they started down here and then slowly they made their way up. And you can see they didn't exceed PSA 10 here for the John Morant, but they certainly came within line of where the sales data is. And you can see starting out 100 in the hundreds, and then they're getting up into the 200s, 250 in some cases. All right. So running the numbers, if you look at those 4 that I sold, they averaged $100.75, and then you can compare it to the averages down below. What's significant about that? Again, the turnaround time being so quick, the cost. If you wanted these anywhere even remotely close to what I can get turnaround time for GMA, you're going to have to pay the $20 fee to get those turned around. And even then, you're looking at probably 6 to 8 weeks to at best to get those back. All right, so why does this matter? Well, here's an example. I also like to buy boxes and do my own breaks and such, as you've seen in some of my other videos. And boxes, just like individual cards, rise in price and value. What I like to do in my collecting, I got certain cards that I keep for my PC, and I also have other cards that I purchase or break out of boxes, get them graded, turn them for a profit, and then turn that profit back into more cards. So why is this significant? Well, if I sent cards off to PSA, if I took those same John Morants, sent them off to PSA, you are correct. I have a chance of getting PSA 10s, which are going to sell for a higher price than the GMA 10s. I also got a chance of getting PSA 9s out of that, and which sell for slightly below GMA 10s. So no matter how you do the math, if my goal is to turn profit and put it back into more cards, my goal is to get them in quick, get them sold, and then use that money to buy more cards. If I went the PSA route and had to wait, I may have made more profit. However, I would be purchasing these Hobby Select boxes at a very high price compared to what I was purchasing them at when I was turning cards. So this is another factor that I play into this, is that the turnaround time for GMA allows me to offload those cards that I want to sell in a quicker clip, and I can turn that into more cards, which again, I can turn into more profit. Maybe in another video, I'll run some data on that just to compare how the profitability has been. I got a pretty monster spreadsheet where I keep all my data. But this is one of my factors that I take into account with this. All right, the other factor is, does PSA truly grade cards fairly? And this is something, this center card was pulled off of a Facebook group that I'm a part of. And you can see, you know, the guy was a little upset with the PSA 7 that he got back for grade on this card. See on the left what PSA 7 Jordan rookies sell for versus a PSA 8 Jordan rookie, which is a almost double the sale price for a 1 grade difference. So what I wanted to do was compare some cards out of the 1986 Flair sheet. Just see how it stacks up compared to this Jordan. What I want to do, a lot of people state that cards on the outer edges of these sheets tend to be lower grades than on the inner part of the sheet, just because there's a chance for damage and the way that they're cut on the outside. So the card that I'm going to compare Jordan to, where I can get the best data, is a KARL MALONE, and you can see where they fall on the sheet of the 86 Flair. So before we do that, I wanted to pull some cards from inside the sheet that aren't on the outer edge. So the two I chose were Patrick Ewing and Larry Bird from this year. Pretty big stars, Patrick Ewing being early in his career here, and Larry Bird being an established star. And you can see the data for the Patrick Ewing here in the center. And the PSA 8s to 10s, was 3,700 cards. Total graded cards was 4,724. The percent of 8s and above were 78.95%, so pretty close to 80%. Number graded 9, 24.87, and the number graded 10, 3.11. Okay, you go down here to the Larry Bird. Fewer cards were submitted for grading, about 1,200 less than the Patrick Ewing. However, you can see that the percentages fell out pretty close to the same. You're looking at around 80% here, graded 8 and above, around 25% graded 9, and a little over 3% graded 10. So to me, for variation levels, this is pretty close. So I want to take this data and we'll roll into the Malone and Jordan. And when you compare those, start with the KARL Malone on the right side, and you can see same standard, almost 6,000 graded. You got 81.99%, 25.25, and 3.58. Pretty close to what we saw with the Bird and Ewing. However, when you look at the Jordan, here's the data that's pulled for the Jordan. Now, granted, a lot more cards were sent in at this level, but you see that the number of cards graded 8 and above were 60%, 9 graded 15%, and graded 10 was 1.73. Many people make the case and they'll try to say, well, it's Michael Jordan, they sent in more cards. People would send in more cards even if they know that they're going to get lower grades. I tend to side with the law of averages on this, especially with the PSA 10 grade. If all of those other cards were grading at a clip of above 3% for PSA 10s, I find it hard to believe that only 1.73% of the Jordans were PSA 10s. And this is where the POP report comes in. A lot of people love the population report. They want to drive by that saying POP report is everything. POP report is convenient. However, it's not 100% accurate. Cards get cracked out of slabs, and the data of those cards that were graded is still in the system. The data will also drive sale prices. And for PSA, if they know that Michael Jordan is one of the hottest cards on the market, they can themselves, in the way that they grade, ensure that there's only a certain amount on the market at the PSA 10 level, and a lower percentage than other cards at the PSA 9 level. And they can sort of drive the value of these cards just based on how they hand out grades. So I can't prove that they are directly driving their graders to grade harder on Michael Jordan cards, but I'm willing to bet that if you peel back the onion on a number of high-level cards like this Jordan rookie, you're going to find that fewer cards are graded at the PSA 10 level compared to other cards in that set or in that sheet. So just something to keep in mind. You can do your own data on this. You can go on PSA's website, pull their POP report on any card you want, and just compare. Do some research. I think it's a great thing for everyone to do their own research and have as much knowledge in this hobby as you can. That is something that bothers me, though. I don't think that all cards are graded fairly. Another factor is the fact that PSA and a number of other companies, to include PWCC, are currently under investigation by the FBI for grading altered cards. And this has been out there. If you're just hearing about this, this is something that's been out for a while now. It started last year. And a lot of people on online groups were outing graded cards from PSA and showing that they were altered based on where cards were creased, certain markings on the card, and it was quite amazing the research that was put into this. And we're talking high-level cards here. We're talking tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even up to the millions of dollars in some of these cards that were sold that turned out to be altered. Which PSA has always been the sort of the standard in the market for grading. Everyone trusted them, blind trust most recently. You know, people coming into the hobby, everyone says grade through PSA, so people have been grading through them. Well, this is something that they're dealing with here now. Other grading companies have had some issues as well. BGS and their black label scandal. There was a guy that worked for them and a Leaf employee, Joe Clemens, who somehow miraculously was able to pull more black label cards than many other companies and individuals, and it's quite remarkable what he was able to do. You see down there in the data, both Clemens and Leaf had quite a few black labels. Very uncommon, and this is something that they were dealing with. And then autograph forgeries, as you can see over there on the right, a lot of stuff is coming out with PSA and SGC authenticating fake autographs. That's something where I mentioned with GMA, they really need to be careful in what they're doing in authenticating autographs, because it's a slippery slope once you authenticate something that's not real. So just something to keep in mind. I mean, any company is susceptible to this. GMA is certainly susceptible to this as well. So they just haven't had any news hit them yet, but there are certainly things that can slip through the cracks with that company, as well as all these, as you've seen. SGC has actually ended their autograph authentication, so they'll only grade autographs that were authenticated by the printer or the manufacturer. So with the FBI investigation, it's very frustrating. I mean, I got a bunch of cards graded through PSA in my personal collection, and I by no means have spent the money that some of these other collectors have on some of these altered cards. But you know, when Joe Orlando's putting at the end of every article that he writes in his magazine, you know, never get cheated, you know, it's really frustrating. And I wasn't even the one that bought altered cards, but knowing that there are, you know, collectors out there that have purchased these cards, knowing, you know, thinking in good faith that they're getting a product that is 100% authentic, and then to find this out, you know, PSA, Joe Orlando, he's like any other CEO. You can see when, you know, things started getting a little fishy there for his company, started selling off his stock. You know, I was checking out a video on YouTube a couple weeks ago, and I find this Joe Orlando posting in the video thread, because this, you know, this guy had posted about how he didn't agree with the grades for his cards and how they were harder than many other submissions that he had seen. You know, just things like this really rubbed me the wrong way with PSA. Me personally, I'm steering clear of this company, especially with an FBI investigation going on. And Joe, I recommend you change your "Never Get Cheated" slogan there. If you haven't checked out this site, Keith from Vintage Card Curator does a phenomenal job. He has put together some videos. Actually, some of my motivation for the way I did some of this video was from his. So if you haven't checked him out, check out his videos. He's got a lot of information on the PSA scandal, very well put together, does some great research, great product. Great job, Keith. Check it out. All right, final facts. GMA, by far, cheapest and fastest grading option you have on the market. PSA 10s, BGS 9.5, and SGC 10s, they hold better resale value in the current market than the GMA does. GMA 10s sell higher than PSA, BGS, and SGC 9s. I think I was able to show that on the data. It may not be for every card, but I will venture to say the majority are going to fall in line with what I showed you on those. GMA graded cards certainly hold more value than raw cards. Hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts. So everyone that says that, shut up. It's not true. GMA does not hand out all 10s on their cards. I can guarantee that by the number of cards I've sent off. Feel free to check out a number of other videos where you can find the same shown for there. Number of 10s from GMA available on eBay does not directly correlate to grades handed out. A lot of the lower grades cards just aren't making it on because they're not going to sell for much. And that's just how the market is right now. Card market definitely experiences price and value fluctuation much like stock market. If you've been in this hobby any period of time, and if you're just getting back into it, man, it is crazy. It's much like the stock market. You know, cards hold a value for what people will pay for them at the end of the day. And right now people are paying a lot of money for them. PSA and other companies under investigation, we just talked about that. Keep an eye on it. Of all the grading companies, PSA is the only publicly traded company. Their brand of Collector's Universe. And, you know, that drives things. They're in it for profit. They're looking to maximize profit. Any business is going to be in it for profit, okay? But when you're talking about publicly traded companies, hey, you got to appease your shareholders at that point. And that brings in a whole nother element. All right, so final slide. Here's my opinion. So this is strictly my opinion, what I think. If I am looking to grade a high value card, I'd say declared value over $1,500. And this card, I feel, will grade at least 9.5 or above. I'm sending it to Beckett because the resale value of that card is going to be the highest under a BGS. With a 9.5 or 10. I'm sending anything to GMA that is in my personal collection that I'm not looking to sell, strictly because you can't beat $4 a card, you can't beat the turnaround time, and if I'm not looking to sell it, their slabs are more than satisfactory for what I'm looking for. I actually like their slabs. They're, you know, a lot of people say that they're cheap. I think they're, you know, definitely not a BGS level slab, and I actually like the SGC slabs more, but I'm very happy with GMA's product they put out, especially for $4 a card. Certain mid-tier cards requiring lower grading fees for profit, I'll send through GMA, just because you got a slight margin there, and if I can get a turnaround time and less cost for grading and still turn a high enough profit, I'm going to go with GMA on those. Any cards I'm looking to flip fast for profit, you're not going to beat their turnaround time. And I put in there cards with a minor flaw. GMA does not have a 9.5 grade. SGC and BGS does have a 9.5 grade. So that factors in. GMA even states in their grading standards they allow for slight imperfection. So if I'm sending something that I think may pull a 9.5 from BGS or 9.5 from SGC, I may be more likely to slide that into GMA just because I do believe they give more of a benefit to the doubt to the person sending in for grading. And I've found with a lot of cards, especially you find the chrome cards that were printed, you know, in recent years, so many times you find a minor surface imperfection on there. The all chrome cards, oh man, the surfaces, there's just a tiny nick here or there, which I don't think should detract from the value all that much of the card. You know, they'll still grade those most likely at a 10, which I appreciate as a collector. So I will go through them. Cards with a declared value up to $1,500 with a solid shot at a 10. I'm going to send SGC, and I'll tell you right now, honest opinion, the best balance of speed, cost, and resale value, I think SGC is where it's at right now. Approaching PSA levels, they get it pretty quick turnaround time. You're talking 20 days for their $10 fee. That's pretty good. It's not GMA good, but it's certainly better than PSA. So if you're looking for the best all around, SGC, I truly believe where it's at right now. And I am going to do another video where I'm going to send off to SGC. So keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks. And again, my opinion, staying away from PSA. So at the end of the day, collect what you love. Grade through who you want, okay? This is all just to educate, put some data out there. primarily for the GMA haters to show that it's not as bleak or bad as what they make it out to be. But certainly there's a balance as far as what you're looking to do. You're looking to grade for PC, you're looking to grade for resale. So I hope this helped you out. I hope you got some good information out of this. If you like this video, please remember to subscribe and hit the like button. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.